Hello, my name's Vic Gilgers. Nice to meet you again. This is episode podcast 27, Creating a Wonderful Life. And today I'm going to talk about bypassing or taking less attention to our ego mind, which can be full of not very nice things, to a more superior mind that we have through the energy of life that is running through us. And in particular, I'm going to talk and refer to about this book, A Course in Miracles. As you can see, it's quite a tome. Its pages are like telephone directory, very thin. And I'm going to do, hopefully if I can find them, 3 quotes from this. The reason that I'm doing it is I don't expect you to read this book. It's, I've read it myself. It changed me, and it hopefully could change you. I say, not expecting you to read it, but if you go on the web, refer to some of the main phrases in A Course in Miracles, I think, and I hope that you'll find that very useful. Now, I can't remember how this came about, that I found out about it. I think it was from a guy called Robert Holden, who in the day, still does, run happiness courses, etc., was quite spiritual. And he laughingly said that he used it as to prop the door open, but he knew certainly more than that, because he's ran courses himself on A Course in Miracles. So things like that encouraged me to read it. But as soon as I started to read it, I was in a way mesmerised by it. And it does alter, I don't know how it does this. I put this to Robert Holden on one occasion and said, it's doing something to me. And he said, well, Vic, he said, it looks like a textbook, but really it's written in iambic pentameter. I don't know what that is, but it's like prose, and it goes dum-de-dum-de-dum, 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 and basically it draws you into it, and it gives you lots of good stuff. So I'm not technically minded, so I can't say any more about that side of it. What I did was, I was at work then as an academic. I have not always been an academic. I used to be an engineer, manufacturing management and all that. But this time of my life, after that, I was an academic. And I just got this book, and I had to deliver a paper at the University of Ghent with some other staff from my university. So I went there and joined other universities, and I presented my paper, and I skived off. Now, that was a favourite occupation of mine. I know that work is important, but life is also important. So I skived off after I'd given my paper. My boss was not too pleased with me, as I found out afterwards, but so what? I benefited greatly by skiving off and walking into the centre of Ghent, where, with my book, with the Course in Miracles, where there was a great long procession of all the trades. There was lots of costumes and people going by, tradesmen with fishes on their heads, loaves on their heads, depicting everything that they did. The thing was, this procession lasted for about an hour. And I just wanted to get reading this book that I had in my hand, and it's quite heavy, quite a tome. So anyway, I enjoyed the procession, it was lovely. But I went straight to the nearest pub in the square, which is opposite a Roman Catholic church. And I'd been in that church, and I don't go to church, but I'd popped in, and the vicar that was there, whatever they call it, the priest, he was talking about something from the Bible, and I really had a nice conversation with him. That was meant to be. And then I went across the road into the pub and started reading this A Course in Miracles. Well, and I'm flattering myself here, and this is my imagination, this young lady kept looking at me. It was quite attractive, and I thought, oh, she's quite attractive, but I was more interested in the book. In fact, what she actually did was she came across and said, "You're more interested in this book than me, aren't you?" And I said yes, because I really was. So I want to tell you just a little bit briefly about it. And if you get the book, just the preface is worth reading. Just that, if you do nothing else, of how it came about and what it is about. And it's, I suppose, a Christian text. It refers to God, fair enough. I mean, that is, I redefine this as intelligent energy, because we were created from something. You cannot deny that. Everything. And the planets that spin around, and as an ex-mathematician, I know that grass grows at a particular rate, a mathematical rate. Well, the grass doesn't know, does it? But the Creator does, whatever created it. So we're all bound by laws and precepts, and that is creation. And there is an intelligent mind behind it all. So don't have to worry. Stop using this so much, because certainly when we get it onto the ego side of things and the worry side of things and trying to fix things out, well, there is, the Creator does that for you, and it guides you if you listen to it. But we don't. We often listen to all the worry that we've got up here. And A Course in Miracles is about all that, really. It is about, moving from fear to love. That's an apt thing to say. Now, it was written, well, it was published in 1970 something by the Foundation for Inner Peace. And so the author of the book, a woman called Helen Schuckman, wouldn't give her name to it because she said she didn't write it. She said it was a directed, I don't know what the word is. That voice came to her and gave her all of this. And so it was directed. I forget the word that we used. And so that's why she would put a title to it. But Helen Schuckman was a professor of, clinical psychology at the Columbia University in New York. And at the time, her boss, who was also another professor, they were having disagreements about how to get on with each other and do the work properly. And she had been distracted by the fact, and he didn't know about this, her boss, that she was having this messages given to her and trying to write it all down and coming back to work the next day a bit tired and a bit confused about it all. So he must have had some common sense, because he said, well, let me have a look at what you're writing down, what is being said to you. So she did. And he was kind of very curious about this, about what was being said, and photocopied it and passed it amongst various people. And in turn, these various people wanted more and made photocopies of it. And over the matter, I can't forget how long it took to do it, but this was the result of all those notes, and it is astounding. I suppose some people who would say the Bible is the book to read, well, I'm not going to disagree with that, but this is very much a Bible, and it refers to the Bible, what is said in the Bible, and it goes on about what, I shouldn't say these words like this, but it does actually say what God said and what God and Jesus said. But don't take it from, well, you don't have to, from a religious point of view. It would work in any setting because it's about what is the truth. Now, let me just illustrate to you in the preface what it says, which is very important here when I find it. I'm sorry about this. The preface was written in 1977. And what it says: nothing real can be threatened. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Now, I think that is quite profound, because let me refer to our thoughts. And I can say this in many different ways, but certainly if our thoughts are ego related, they are not reality. They are what we imagine to be the case for us, a personal kind of thought, but it's not the truth. And so in that sense, it's not real. Also, in a more generalized thing, I've said this differently in many different ways, that our thoughts which come to us, our thoughts are our reality, and they are a thought-created reality. And I'll come across it later, what is said in here about our thoughts. Our thoughts are not the truth. We think they're the truth. They are not. They are really an illusion. Made up. Our thoughts are determined by our mind. And our mind is like a computer. It is like artificial intelligence. It thinks it knows what it's about, but it is not the creator. It is not it. And so it is just part of us, which is a computer, which comes in after the event when something happens and makes a commentary about it, has a stance on it, has an opinion about it. And a term I've used before is has a dog in the fight. And when we have something of importance to us that is personal to us, we always have a particular take, which is a different take from what anybody else would have in the same situation. And again, I've said all this before, you can go to the same event and experience the same circumstances, but and have a different view or a different thought about what went on. So it is not our circumstances that determine what we think. It is our mind that determines what we think, and that can lead us right or wrong. So I could say this in many different ways, but basically it is a bit of an illusion, because this is not really us. Our mind is not us. It's just in other words, who is the watcher then of what we think about? Because in other words, we are more than what our thoughts, and so we can observe our thoughts. And who is the observer? It is something, not just this, and it's something behind the ear balls. It's not our heart. Where is it? It is, and this is what the Course in Miracles goes about, it is divine. It is, when we look at the way in which the three principles look at it, it is to do with mind, which is God intelligence, which is what the Course in Miracles goes on about. It is about consciousness, being aware of our thoughts, or when we are not necessarily engaged in a particular thought. So say we have a problem, and we're racking our brains of how to solve this problem. And we consider this, we consider that, plan A, plan B. This person said this, what should we do? Our boss said this to us, I haven't got a pay rise. How do I pay the gas bill? My relationships are bad. How do I solve all these things? And we can worry it and worry it and worry it. And if you've experienced this and you've not come up with the answer, and then all of a sudden what happens is you go for a walk, or you go in the shower, or you sit down and have a cup of tea, or you're talking to a friend, and all of a sudden some thoughts come to you, fresh thoughts, not the ones that you've been having, going round, which is just regurgitated thoughts about thoughts, looping all the time. And in that sense, when fresh thought comes through, you get the answers. Now, where does that come from? It doesn't come from, this didn't do it. It was something superior. It was something outside of the mind, or should I say, something within. And we've all got this. And the Course in Miracles talks about this, that we have these God-given gifts inside of us. It's part of us. It's part of our awareness of what is the truth. We get to know what is the truth when we move away from our busy mind. So what I'll do is I'll quote one or two things from the Course in Miracles, So bear with me again, because it's difficult for me anyway to find stuff in this, but I've bookmarked it, so we should find it. So here it is. And this is lesson... Oh yeah, there's 3 parts to this A Course in Miracles. There is the text, which is the main part. There is a workbook for students and a manual for teachers. So it's in 3 parts. Yeah, and that's another thing. When I bought this, it was very expensive for me at the time. I'm going back years, and it was something like nearly £20. It's much more than that now. And I didn't have £20, and I went into Waterstones and I begged the assistant to let me have it at a reduced price, and she would not at first. And I think she kind of felt a pity for me, really. I said the front was scratched, which it wasn't. There was a mark on it, which she rubbed off. And I thought, well, that's destroyed my argument. Yeah, there was a bit of sticky plastic on it, and she just got a rag and just wiped it off and said, look, there's nothing wrong with it. And I thought, well, I thought there was something wrong with it, so can you give me... Anyway, she did. Eventually, I got it for about 12 quid. I'm saying this because in the day, books were about £5. And I didn't know what this, really, I would have, knowing what I know now, I would have paid double the asking price, because it's priceless. It really is. As are many other texts besides this, but I'm just referring to this one in the podcast. So I'll say what this says. This is a lesson 361 in the 3 lessons 361 to 365. I don't get that. But it says, and this is in the workbook for students, and if I need a word to help me, he will give it to me. If I need a thought, that will he also give. And if I need but stillness and a tranquil, open mind, these are the gifts I will receive of him. He is in charge of my request, and he will hear and answer me, because he speaks for God, my Father, and his Holy Son. Now, this he is really what is referred to in the Bible as I am. And we are part of that. So if you can imagine, say, the sea and a wave coming out of the sea, the wave, which is expressions of all of us, and so we are expressions of creation. We are expressions of this universal intelligence that bashes against the rocks and impinges upon the world, and then goes back into the depths of the sea, where the wisdom is, where the oneness is, where the I amness is. So we're all part of I am, and it's not in here, it's not in here, it's somewhere, we don't know. You could call it spirit. I call it spirit. So I thought that was good. And if I need a word, he will give it to me. That's just what I said, like when you go into the shower, when you go into the walk, when your mind becomes quiet, when this becomes quiet, you get to know. It becomes a knowing. You know right from wrong. This is why we have instincts. This is why we get to know. This is this knowingness. And basically, it helps us. Now, I'll go to another one. I'm only going to do 3 because this is a bit of a lark for me to do. So, no, I've lost where it is. Oh dear. All right, yes. So this is lesson 281 in the workbook again, and it says, "I can be hurt by nothing but my thoughts." Very true. This is what hurts us. We have a thought about something, and it may be an ego thought saying, well, I'm here and I should be there. I'm this type of look and I should have that type of look. I've got this type of money and I should have that type of money. I've got this type of job and I should have that type of job. So in other words, we're always dissatisfied, because comparison is the killer of joy here. And that is so true. And so, I mean, it doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't get fed up. It doesn't mean to say, I mean, we're human. That is the whole point of it. But when we realise that this thing kind of is always looking for lack, it comes from lack. And basically, when we feel lack, we've stopped realising that there is an inner voice, an inner knowing, an inner expression of ourselves that's got the answers. That's what I mean. So there is no lack, really. We think there's lack, but there isn't. So when I get fed up nowadays, I realise that I'm fed up and think, well, I'm bound to be fed up because, I'm not as pretty as I think I should be, and or whatever. And I don't know what to say. I need more money. I need a different coloured shirt because I keep wearing blue ones. My daughter says, why do you always wear blue shirts, Dad? I don't know. Anyway, so I can be hurt by nothing but my thoughts. Now, I've got I don't know where this is from, but it's from A Course in Miracles, but I don't know exactly where. And it says, it is our thoughts about being hurt and having to be upset. In reality, nothing was done to us in the first place. When we think there was, the myth that fear is real is continued. So I think that's very important. And it says, in reality, nothing was done to us in the first place, because it wasn't. Nothing was done to us. It is what we do to ourselves. So it wasn't done to us. This is doing it. And it says, when we think there was the myth that fear is real, and this is what in the preface, and it says, nothing unreal exists. These thoughts are not real. They are imagined. They do not really exist in reality. They are not the truth. So at least in our human kind of way of going on, my advice here, sorry to say that, I don't mean to, kind of be a clever dick here. What I'm saying, though, is that when we pay less attention to our thoughts and just acknowledge them and let them pass, and this is very important, saying let them pass, because when we hold on to a thought, we're basically getting out of step of life. Because life is like a river and it flows, and let the thoughts go by, acknowledge them, hello, cheerio, because all the time in the moment, the minute you can't hold on to a thought, seize a thought, it is taking you out of the now and basically into the past, because that thought happened in the past. So whatever happens now, right, and then we think about that, what happened, it will refer to something that happened in the past. It's a bit like, if you imagine playing a game on the playing field, could be rugby, soccer, cricket, and there is a professional commentator all the time speaking about the pros and cons of the match and what this team is doing is against that team, and everybody's listening to that commentator expressing their views about the match. Just remember, it is not what is actually going on in the pitch. On the pitch, the pitch is real life. That is so. What I'm saying is, you take yourself, and I take myself when I do this, out of life to listen to the commentary, which is not what is actually going on the pitch. So I hope, I don't wish to be condescending here. I'm not trying to do that at all. I'm just trying to work it all out myself and help you, hopefully, by saying things like that. So I think I've got one last one here, and then I'll go away. And it says, and this is chapter 16 in the text, page 338, I think that's right. And it says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all of the barriers within yourself you have built against it. That's so true. We build barriers to love because we focus on hatred, guilt, fear, transgressions against us. We have these grievances, and that is basically barriers against love. And we think we have to defend ourselves against life. Now, a few years ago, there was a really good video I think, a cartoon type video developed by a guy called Michael Neal. Listen to Michael Neal. He has a podcast for the soul on every week on the Computer Bob thing, and it's free. And they are 10-minute podcasts, brilliant wisdom there. And he does a free course on happiness, that type of thing. And one of the videos is of a person building a castle to defend against the enemy, having to spend all the time maintaining the castle, walking the ramparts to see if he's not being attacked, and even worried about its relative, worried about defending friends and loved ones inside the castle, because that's the job, and also worried about, say, people that he might know that are outside the castle, what his enemies might do to them. So all the time is devoting all this energy, as we do, over worry thoughts. They are nothing but thoughts. They are not real. They cannot harm us. They can only harm us because we think they harm us, when we know that inside this I amness, this oneness, this energy of life, and that's what it is. It is getting away from life when we're thinking about all the stuff, instead of being in life. When we're in life, we can sniff the breeze and enjoy the breeze, and that is when wisdom and knowingness, whatever you want to call it, comes to us. So I think that's my last quote there from the book. There's one more quote, and it is by Michael Neal again. As you can see, I'm a bit of a fan of his. And he says this: "Just beyond the noise of your own minds is the quiet big nothing, the divine mind out of which all things come into being. It is a field of pure potential, an unploughed field, so fertile that we need only drop the seed of an idea into it, and it will spring into life and begin to grow almost immediately." Brilliant. I mean, that business of an unploughed field so fertile, drop just a seed of an idea into it, and it would spring to life and begin to grow almost immediately. Wonderful. I know this is true, and other people know this because they've told me that what they do is they have a request, they have a prayer, they have a want, a need, that they know they can't solve themselves, so they turn it over. The religious people would say to a higher power, to God. Basically what I do is I just know that, having stated the problem that I know I can't solve myself, I can come up with solutions, but I know there is a better way to get an answer, and that lies within. And basically, when I turn my mind, having done the request or kind of ascertained what the problem is that I would like to have solved, then it's amazing that sometime during the day, and it might not be that particular day, the idea or some ideas about what to do come into your mind. So I'll sum up this just with a little metaphor of my own, or a story of my own, in saying that we need to get rid of this, not rid of it, because it's useful for planning holidays and packing your suitcase and what have you, and what colour shirt to put on. The wrong colour. And so that is the wrong way to do things. The right way to do things is the right way, is to go within, because that's where the answers lie. And this is not a new thing. All the sages of the past said this well before A Course in Miracles was, and I'm talking about well before the Bible was written, that the sages and philosophers of the day, they were saying the answer lies within, and it does. So my little story is about a window cleaner, right? So this window cleaner has got business cleaning the windows down this particular street, goes and up and down the ladder, cleaning all the windows, up and down the next ladder, next house, cleaning all the windows, up and down, right? And it goes to the end of the street, and he's done the street, and then he goes to door by door to collect his money. And the first door he comes across, in fact, any door that he goes to, is say, I didn't ask you to clean my windows, you're down the wrong street. And he suddenly looks in his book, and he'd got the wrong street. So basically, he'd been putting up his ladder against the wrong wall. And so, do you get this? We often put our ladder up against the wrong wall in life. And when you get your ladder up against the correct wall, then you've cracked it. So the correct wall is inside of us. That is where the knowing is. That is where the peace is. And I forgot to say this at the beginning. This book is about the attainment of inner peace, because that's where it lies. And so when referring to my story about the ladder up against the wall, in the first instance, when he was in the wrong street, no matter how quickly he went up and down the ladders and how hard and fast he did this, it didn't count. Doesn't count. You know, something inside actually knows what to do in a better way. And once you lean your ladder in life up against the right wall, you can leisurely walk up the rungs of the ladder, knowing that you're going in the right direction instead of the wrong direction. So I hope that's helped. Thank you for listening. And yeah, I'll see you again, hopefully. Thank you.